This is a Mr. G production. Whoosh. Hey, welcome back to the second part of the video on sprouting foundations, which we went over in video 1, where I taught you the basics of how to draw a tree, how to split and divide, and we went over this in a fairly extensive lesson. And from that, it should give you the basics, which many of you know already from doing our tree projects. The second video I hope you saw by now was Mr. G drawing or sketching outside, where I was able to actually sit and find a comfortable spot and draw. And I want to go over that with you because drawing from reality is a lot different than drawing from our imagination. To have information in your head, the way things look, helps you to have an imagination when you're drawing. So you want to build up that information, that image bank of what things look like by looking at the real world. So this is, for example, a point of view of just looking outside my gate here. And I'm only showing you this. It's not a finished sketch by any means, but it's showing you I started to add texture. And to add texture, I used nothing but a simple pencil, a regular pencil. And just basically going in the direction of what I'm creating, coloring in the direction of where, let's say, the bark is growing, shading it in darker where it needs to be darker, lighter where it needs to be lighter, and then beginning to build up that texture. The build-up of texture is what makes things look real. Is it important that your trees look real? Of course not at all. But the point of view you stand at, I will say, should not change. So if I'm standing in this spot to draw this picture here, I want to stand at that spot when I continue to go back and draw more. Why? Because I want to remember, did that branch really still go through that branch there? Did it overlap? Is there any missing elements? Do I want to shade it differently? Maybe the trees, the leaves fell off, and I want to draw it a little bit differently. Maybe I'll erase some. That's up to me as the artist, but texture is how you achieve that. Simple texture can be with pencil, with paint, with all different materials. Let me show you another one, and this is the one I actually used in the demonstration I did out in that video with sketching with Mr. G. And I was looking at this grouping of little palm trees here. Is it exactly the way they look? No, it's not. It's my interpretation of it from that point of view. I did the best I can to capture the way their likeness, but knowing that nature moves around, the wind blows, that I couldn't be perfect, nor did I even try to be, because that wind wouldn't listen when I told it to stop. Composition is important. Composition, this is why I'm doing this in level 2, is about how things feel. All the elements, the trees, the background, the midpoint elements, the foreground elements, do they feel balanced? And if it does, you have a good composition. If I had started my picture and I cut off most of the tree, maybe it wouldn't look as pleasing to the viewer. Now, did I, again, finish these textures? No, but I would go back, I could add texture, I could add color, I could add whatever I want, I could add sky. If I had paint, I could paint it. If I had chalk, I use chalk. Whatever I have, I'm using pencils for the most part. That's what mostly I have. And there's one more here. This is another one, and you can see the difference when you're drawing from reality. It just takes on a different feel, a likeness that's imperfect. In other words, it's not perfect. Did I finish this? No, but I did go in there, I added some more shades where it needed to be darker, added the knot there. I didn't finish yet, where there must have at one point been another branch coming off of it. But in this case, I just a little sketch, and I enjoy doing that when I have the time to do it. Let me put these back up here, and then I'm going to continue showing other ways to sketch and interpret artwork, including being creative and thinking outside the box. So I already went over the realistic things and looking at something, observing it. Famous story of George Washington cutting down the cherry tree, the cherry blossom tree, which I come to find out might not have been true. He might not have cut the tree down. But again, I'm an art teacher, so I'm just going to tell you how it is. This one was done with magic marker, almost all, colored pencil, and the only thing that had paint on it, the only thing, was the little blossoms, which I had at school. This time I don't have blossoms, I don't have any paint, so I could improvise with something. I could use magic marker, could have drawn it in, pretty much been as creative as I wanted to be. But for now, this is what I created, and overlapping, creating texture using color pencil was the fun part of this particular project here. Now, let me use that as an opportunity to springboard to a cherry blossom tree abstractly. So we're not thinking realistic now. I drew a cherry blossom branch, which I really like to do. I like to just draw trees a lot. Everyone knows that about me. Then I outlined it using a light tracer. In this case, you can use your window. If you overlap paper, you can see through paper and recreate something on a sunny day. So a bright day can create a light box, just like we use in the classroom. Then I colored it in. And then in coloring it in, I was able to create a silhouette. We went over that project when we did shadows and painting with light. Silhouettes is dark on light. If I turned it upside down, it actually takes on a really cool characteristic of almost lightning bolt. And for those who remember, the older kids, when we did the lungs and the heart, those little veins and arteries that reduce down to the littlest of things, just how our body works to get things, whether it's to the leaves or the little parts of our lungs that need to get the oxygen. It all kind of has the same visual characteristic. I could add blossoms to this one, but I didn't want to. I wanted to leave this one as a silhouette like this. But again, as the artist, I could do it and do what I want to do, just like you could do what you want to do. Let's move on to other creative solutions for adding things to our artwork. Now, we tend to draw things and want things to look real, so we take chances. This was a watercolor painting that I just literally barely finished. It just took, I happened to have it at home from something I tested at school, and I had my color pencils here. So I was able to add those details using just colored pencils, and that little bit of detail is the difference between something that's realistic and something that's more abstract. Is it perfect? Not at all. That wasn't the point of me doing this. It's to add on, to show you that you can mix materials. When paint's dry, you can go over it with marker, over it with pencil, over it with oil pastel if you have them. And that's another really cool thing to know, that you don't always have to stick with one medium. And in this case, it would have been just watercolor. Now it's mixed medium. And you get on to the next really cool example I'm going to show you here. And, of course, silhouettes of other objects, and then especially trees. Trees are very recognizable objects, and they make really great icons in logo design, in commercial design. But before I get onto that, now that I got your attention with that, I want to show you a couple of other sketches that if you say, well, I don't even have paper, I only have a pen, I only have a marker, I only have like a very limited supply. This is simply just a piece of lined paper and a pen, and I just drew a tree. I had fun doing that. I did another one here as well that really is not finished, of course, again, but again, even with a pen, you can achieve such great texture and abstract detail. Are these leaves perfect? No, not at all. That's not why I did it. Again, I did this to kind of experiment with materials, and I think I would play around a lot more with lined paper and pen now I have done that project. That was a lot of fun. Put those back there. And before I get on to the commercial side and all that stuff, I wanted to show you one other thing, and this is more like an extra option. These are birch trees in the woods. Now, this is not a project you're necessarily going to make, but this is something you could think about in the future that you might want to explore. In this case, it involved the background being created using white and blue, which was separate from the actual trees, and I can show you what I mean by that. Is these trees are actually not attached. They're separate elements. I created them separately and then attached them, really careful cutting those out. And this was started simply by observing what birch trees look like. And I talked about texture. Birch trees, in this case, have this lines that go side to side, almost peeling looking. And this being a water-based marker, once it was wet, it changes, and it gets that blurry effect that we've done before and in the past, which is also demonstrated in level 1 video of this project. Then they were cut out and put onto the background. So simply by just, and then you could, what's nice about this is you can mix and match, you can overlap, you can create whole scenes. But this is a much more time-intensive project that you might want to do on your own at another time, because it does take time, especially the cutting out part. Now let's get to the commercial side of this, and the creative side, which I know many of you have so much of. I drew a tree and simply outlined this one in permanent marker. Didn't matter, I just wanted to use permanent marker in this case. And then I said, I want to make it designy. And I used the same exact design, except I embellished it using my own imagination. That's it. Added thicker lines, thin lines, tapered lines, some textures in there with these little dots to give it some sort of detail. I could add color if I wanted to, but for this particular example, I just wanted to show you this. Move on to the next example. This one here, I drew a little tree inside of a circle. Now, some of you older kids might like this challenge here. You trace a circle using any sort of item you have at home, a cup, some sort of, round shape. It could be even a square shape for all just letting you know you can constrain your tree to a shape. Then I outlined it using a very, very, very thin pen. Carefully, my hand is not very steady and it was not perfect by any stretch. And then I simply, and not even cleanly, just linearly just colored it in. And if you noticed, I don't know if you've seen the Timberland logo, very similar. They use a tree in their logo. And this was fun to do because it's not a very big piece of artwork. You can see they're not very big, but the fun process is the step-by-step. It's being able to look at something and evolve it over from pencil to linear, just simple lines to coloring it in. I could then take that one and cut it out and put it on something else, but I didn't want to do that in that case. Okay, another example here, which I think is really, 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 really cool. I always say that, but I wanted you to see this one here, is I drew a tree inside a circle again. Then I said, I want to break the rules. I'm going to go think outside the circle or outside the box. So I took one design, recreated it, and then just continued those other lines that would have otherwise been erased here and continued outside the circle. So again, logo-y, simplified. It's almost like taking something very complicated and breaking it down to as simple as shapes. And that's, if you look at the Timberland logo especially, you will see that example. This is, I think the artist name is Yartz. Y-E-A-R-T-Z or Y-R-T-Z. It's in the presentation. This is not a finished example, and I did this on purpose. I wanted to leave it simple because the example you're going to see, or if you have seen in the slide presentation, utilizes these really great swirls, and those swirls are really great to color around. In fact, if I could find it real quickly, I have a student's work from a while ago that just so happens to remind me of that artist. Yartz, that's his name. You can see we kind of went with it. So I'm showing you that student example to let you know. And they colored in, look, you can tell. It's just, I think, that might be watercolor, even marker, just wet. Looks like crayon, so they didn't have to worry about it getting, the crayon getting ruined because the paint went around it and it'll resist. And that's what they created. So why not, right? Have some fun. You don't have to be realistic, but it's definitely fun to know how to be realistic or how to see something that's real and make it your own versus just making it up for no reason. And before I go, I want to just, because I promised myself I would show you these, some student examples of interpretations of trees. Now this is an unfinished one here, but you'll see that in the slide presentation, Vincent van Gogh, it was really known in his painterly style, a lot of movement, and this sketch a student did is very Van Gogh-like, and I wanted to show that to you because it's important to see that it's not perfect, it's loose, it's just relaxed, it has so much energy. That's to me, that's a successful sketch right there. Then in those birch trees I mentioned earlier, this is from a couple of years ago, this student here made a beautiful scene here. And all they used was magic marker and water to color it. And you could tell from the lines it didn't actually get blurred out. And I love this picture. I'd love to put this on my wall. And there's one more here that was a black and white version of that project that a student did. In this case, they left the black and white because it was a snowy day. And I just, again, another piece that looks like something you'd see in a gallery, and it's so simple. They just followed the same steps that we did, and they just continued. In this case, because it's birch trees, they went left to right, and they just wet the lines and moved on. And that was it. And then science did the rest. Beautiful, beautiful work of art. One last thing I'm going to show you. For those who feel very, very challenged, and I know that you guys like to take on challenges, if you want to take one of your artworks when you're done and make it into a sculpture and kind of bring back that sculpture project into the painting project, you can do that. I made slits in the back of my project where I felt they needed to be based on my drawing, and you could see as I turned my project around, you could see that not only does it stand up, but it's still a tree. And if I bring it to the right perspective, let me line myself up with the camera, it lines right back up with itself. So at some point of view, it still looks like a closed piece of artwork, but at any other angle, it's a three-dimensional sculpture. I thought you'd like to see that. I don't think I missed anything for this lesson. I hope I didn't. Go to design, bring it slide. So do me a favor, make sure you definitely go through the entire presentation, look at the reference images I created for you, check out the professional artists, the famous artists, including Van Gogh and Mondrian, and you'll see how master artists aren't always the most talented artists. They just are very creative in their own way, and that's what I want you to do. I'm not looking for you to focus and become the world's greatest artist. I'm looking for you to be creative in your way. And that's all I ever want you to be, is the best you can be. And that's Mr. G signing off for this level 2 project, and sprouting foundations, growing trees. And I'm proud of you. Give it a try, and hopefully you get to see some of your artwork and you enjoyed this process. Have a great day. Miss you.